Hi, everyone. Welcome to the on-demand version of Writing Across Disciplines, Faculty Tools and Resources for Student Success. My name is Shauna Waltemeyer, and I will be one of your hosts. I will also be joined by Dr. Jeff Cranmore. As we look at what the workshop agenda is for today, we really want to focus on how can we serve our students best, especially when there are writing intensive courses. And many of the assignments in our classes are essays or some sort of short answer type questions, especially when they fall outside of the quantitative courses. So for the purposes of this on demand, we will be talking about tips for creating useful and holistic feedback, online resources that check for spelling and grammar, edit functions in Word, and how to align and utilize the rubric for grading written assignments. And later in the presentation, Dr. Cranmore will walk you through a lot of these functions, a lot of how to be more efficient with your time, how to avoid grading fatigue when we have a lot of essays to grade. So we will go ahead and get started. We'll first just provide a quick introduction about ourselves. Like I said, my name is Shauna. I'm an assistant professor of management for the Colangelo College of Business. I'm also a senior doctoral adjunct for the College of Doctoral Studies. And this simply means that I am a dissertation chair and help students complete their dissertations and get them to graduation. And I've been with GCU for about 8 years. And Dr. Cranmore is assistant adjunct professor for the College of Doctoral Studies. He is also a dissertation chair, and he has been with GCU for a little over 5 years, almost 6 years. So the first topic that I want to go over is using the rubric for grading. And in a lot of cases, you will have sections in the rubric that there's only a portion, I believe it's called writing mechanics, language, something to that effect. So what we can do if the rubric allows it, you'll have to check with the rubric for each of your individual courses. So I'll just put that as a friendly reminder. So as this is a rubric for the course that I teach, which is UNB 504. It's the Introduction to Graduate Business Studies. And this is one of the content requirements for the final essay. And a lot of times, the content essay is what takes up majority of the rubric and where most of the points are allocated. So even if the mechanics and the spelling and grammar and language is only a small portion, say 5 to 10%, then we can still use the content areas of the grading rubric to really justify a grade, especially if there are a lot of mechanical errors in the essay. So for instance, this specific rubric allows me to deduct points if the comments aren't aligned, if they're hard to follow, if the readability is low. If I look under here, under the good category, it says articulation of entrepreneurism in future business practice includes major points with details and relevant supportive references. So really, if the student is unable to articulate what it is that they're trying to say and how entrepreneurism and future business practices, what that looks like for them, if the spelling has a lot of errors, if the sentence structure is incorrect, the language is inappropriate, then I can use this rubric and mark them down because they're really not able to articulate that. So again, just make sure that you check your rubric to see if these types of deductions can be taken in the content section. If not, then that's something that you'll want to bring up with your content chairs. Really, we use the rubric for guiding how we grade the paper. And what I see oftentimes is that students are coming into my course. It is the introduction course, and they have never seen a rubric before. So it's hard for them really to wrap their mind around. It opens up into an Excel document, and it looks very cumbersome and overwhelming if you're a new student. So what I like to do is also explain to them how I use the rubric for grading. And I'm going to show you a video here in a few minutes on how I do that. You are welcome to use any variation of this video that you would like, or copy it and post it in your classrooms. But I have found that it has really great success. So one thing that I noticed in my courses was that students really didn't know how to access the rubric. So if you think about where it's located in LoudCloud, it really just is a little clickable button over to the right that says view rubric. And if you don't know what you're looking for, then it would be really helpful to identify that to your student. And in order to do that, you can use any sort of screencasting technology. It could be Loom, Zoom, YouTube. I make a lot of quick little videos and tutorials on how to properly format an APA, or how to locate your rubric, how to read your rubric, how to locate your document that has my embedded comments in it. And again, I do teach the introductory course, so I have to provide a little bit more clarification to my students, as opposed to those seasoned veterans that have, been in class for several months and they're pros at locating that stuff. So just be mindful of where your student is at, and incorporate the use of screencasting if it's something that's possible for you. If you have tutorials that you want to use, or anything of the like. So I also, in the video that we'll show you here in a minute, I also talk to my students about how to structure an essay so that it aligns with the rubric. And this is really important as a faculty member, because when we go to grade these assignments, if there's 3 content areas and all 3 content areas are written into one big paragraph, it's really hard to determine what information goes with which content objective. So I start my students off in their first written assignment, which is in week 2, and I provide a template for them. And I simply say, this is where the introduction goes. These are the headings that you would put in your assignment. And then I also point out that it aligns with the organization of the rubric. So if you are finding that many of your students are having difficulty with the organization and structure of their essays, then a quick screencasting video is a really simple way to visually demonstrate that for your students. And again, I provide templates because many of my students have been out of school for upwards of 20, 30 years, and they're in the middle of their career, and they're coming back to get an MBA for career advancement and job growth. So the likelihood that they have seen 7th edition APA is probably very low. So my goal as an instructor of the introductory class is to ensure that when they finish my course, that they go on to their next content course and they have the basics down. And the basics really are how to write an effective essay and how to properly use APA formatting. So the more tools that I can give them ahead of time, before the assignments are due, then the better prepared they are and the better results that we'll see when I go to grade those. And not only is it a confidence builder for students when they get these positive grades and the good remarks and the positive feedback, it also, as a faculty member, it makes my job easier, because now I'm doing less, embedded feedback and and organizing their paper and explaining how to restructure it. I already have introduced that to them prior. So now I can focus more on the content and whether or not they're meeting those objectives. So really spending a little bit of extra time in the beginning of class really will go a long way. It will save you time. It will save you from seeing the same mistakes that your students are making over and over again. And it really just helps your student feel successful and be successful. And that's one of the things that we really want to talk about is how can we as faculty members provide them this feedback on their mechanics and their organization, and how can we do that in a way that's effective for us and for our time management. So a little bit later in the on-demand, Dr. Cranmore will go over some really fantastic tools that will help you really get yourself organized and be able to provide that holistic feedback that both addresses the good things that they've done within the content, but also maybe some areas of opportunity as well. And it also provides us the opportunity to use these little videos, the screencasting technology. You can use that as feedback, and you can post that in the comments, and you can embed that in the feedback within the document. So it does take more time on the front, like I said, to set it up, but in the long run, it saves you time and it saves your students time, and it really helps build their confidence. So this is one of the ways that I use the screencasting technology. And this is an example of the template that I created for the final assignment in UNV 504. And then on the left is an example of just the content areas of the rubric. So I really just took a screenshot of a section of the rubric and put these two side by side. So one of the things that my students don't understand, because they have no concept of yet, is really the weight. And what I mean by that is whether it's weighted, one section is weighted 15% versus another that's weighted 25%. So this is something that I point out to them. And oftentimes what I see is that students will address entrepreneurism, ethics, and servant leadership, but they'll incorporate the 3 pillars and personal impact as part of their conclusion paragraph. So I point out specifically that this is where 25% of your overall grade for the paper. So it is actually a section that needs to be a little bit lengthier than the entrepreneurism, ethics, and servant leadership. So again, this is the first time many of my students are writing an academic paper, and especially using APA 7th edition. So I tell them what an introduction paragraph looks like. And I started doing this because I found that students didn't know how to write an effective introduction. And so I basically say the first paragraph is the introduction. It's a brief summary of what the main topic of the essay is. And then the last 1 to 2 sentences of the paragraph is your thesis statement. And this tells your reader what you plan to discuss. And in this specific example, I give them an example of what an appropriate thesis statement looks like, so they can use that as a guide. And then I also talk about formatting and organization for each section of the rubric. So this is a little bit hard to see. The font is small. You'll see it a little bit more in the video that we'll show you. But basically, I say, introduce and discuss the pillar of entrepreneurism as it relates to your selected industry. Include details on entrepreneurism and your future business practices using relevant supporting references. So this is something that ties directly back to the verbiage in the rubric if I were to expand it. So I also say, according to the rubric, this section is worth 15% of the overall grade. And then little reminders like paragraphs need to be at least 3 sentences. And I put in bold, don't forget to cite your sources. So I go through this and I outline it specifically for them so that they can get a sense of what academic writing looks like, and then how to organize your essay, and so that to make sure that it aligns with the rubric and so that you're meeting all of those objectives. So now we'll show you a quick video. It's about 2 minutes long. And I created this video basically based on that 3 pillars essay on the previous slide. And I found that once I created this 2-minute video, I use it in all my classes. It has answered so many questions, and the final essays that my students turn in are hands down far superior than when I didn't use the video. And that tells me that they're learning so much in this introductory class, and they're learning how to use LoudCloud, and they're really getting their feet wet in online learning, that formatting an essay is, maybe overwhelming to them. So if I can make a 2-minute video that can be viewed by all my students, I usually teach about 160 to 200 students at a time. If I can do that, then I have now set up those students for success, and it only took me 2 minutes to create the video. So I encourage you to consider using screencasting technology. In my classes, I have quick videos that talk about how to properly format an in-text citation and how to organize your reference page so that it's alphabetical and that you only use the author's last name and the initials, and then the proper formatting and capitalization for a journal article title. So all these videos take very little time to create. I think those APA videos are maybe 20 seconds each. And I can use that. I can embed it in their feedback. I can post it in the discussion forums. I can use it as an announcement. So I place it in multiple areas, and it's just something that saves me time in the long run, but it also provides that visual representation of what it should look like for my students. And it really helps them make the connection when they can hear my voice, and they can also, see me typing and actually see the Word document that I'm using. So please enjoy the video and let us know if you have any questions. Thank you.